little bit of the Grateful Dead coming back here on News Radio WRVA. Not something we play a lot here on the station, but thank you very much, Super Dave, because I'm going to use it to prove a point. So, if anybody knows a Deadhead, and I'm certainly not a Deadhead, I've never seen them before, and I don't own anything tie-dye in my wardrobe, but I do understand one of the concepts of the Grateful Dead from folks that I know when I lived out on the West Coast. The Grateful Dead was very unique, and you hear that kind of ensemble cast, and what I learned from Deadheads is, at least this is what they taught me, that each member of the Dead was playing their own song, individually on their own instrument. And what happened is they would take that individual sound from that individual instrument and then weave it together into a tapestry of a Grateful Dead song. So if you took Bob Weir, Jerry Garcia out, and you just isolated that one instrument, they're playing their own song. Then they layer them on top of each other, and they come up with this melody that was the Grateful Dead. That's why it was so unique. Now, I bring that up for a reason, because I want to talk about President Trump's speech last night, because quite honestly, when I was watching it, I was kind of scratching my head. It really wasn't very Trumpian. It wasn't Donald Trump riffing, Donald Trump talking, Donald Trump playing to the audience. It was Donald Trump very focused with a list of things he wanted to talk about, and he checked off the boxes. And I walked away thinking, I don't really understand what I saw last night. So then I rewatched it again this morning. Maybe last night I was a little tired, to be honest with you. But once I sat down and I looked through the text of the speech, it all opened up to me like a Grateful Dead song, and I wanted to share that with you. Because last night we saw one speech that was meant for 4 different audiences, and none of them heard the same thing. So work with me here, folks. Last night when Donald Trump goes to make that speech, you're going to read this morning that it was a messy speech, that he was all over the place. He was checking boxes here and checking boxes there. But in reality, here's what was going on. You were watching 4 speeches at the same time intended for 4 different audiences. Let me explain. Here's the breakdown. For the media that you see talk to Donald Trump all the time, and you see him on the newspaper, on the plane, sparring with newspaper reporters and cable TV. Where are you from? You guys aren't real news. They keep asking the same question. Mr. President, when is this war with Iran going to end? As if this were a video game, as if this were Call of Duty, as if this were a movie. The best I can explain to it, it's kind of like when I used to run radio stations, I used to run sports stations. And the person that was in charge of scheduling all the commercials, she'd ask me, Rich, what time is this baseball game going to be over? I said, I tell you that first pitch is at 7:15. She goes, yeah, I know that. But what time is this baseball game going to be over? I said, it's going to be over when it's over. And she goes, no. I need to know exactly what time it's going to be over so I can schedule the next event and the next batch of commercials. And I'd tell her, it's over when it's over. It's 9 innings, 27 outs. When they get those 27 outs, the game will be over. I know, but what time will it be over? After the last out in the 9th inning. Yeah, but what time is that? I don't know. Because there's a natural flow to it, and sometimes it'll go quick, sometimes it'll go long, but it's unpredictable. I just know it's going to be over when it's over. And that's what the media keeps asking Donald Trump. So he was responding back to them, trying to give them an answer that nobody really knows. Will this thing be over in 2 days, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years? No one knows, because Iran, believe it or not, has a say in when this is over. Donald Trump said this over and over again, but the media still continues to say, well, when will this be over, Mr. President? And he can't say, I don't know, so he has to give them something. So that was part of the speech. He's also giving a speech to the rest of the world. Just about everybody in the world knows that a nuclear Iran would be a threat to the world. An Iranian regime with a bomb could lead to the end of the world. Period. End of story. The world would be a much more dangerous place if Iran had the bomb. And I hear people going back and forth. Was it an imminent threat? I don't know. But it was a threat. Is there anything else other than a threat? A threat is a threat, whether it's going to happen today, tomorrow, or next week. So if you're saying, was it an imminent threat? They were going to bomb us with the bomb right now and blow us up? No. Does that make that threat any less lethal if it's next week, next month, next year? They were marching towards getting the bomb. And if they had it, the world would not be a safe place. And everybody in the world knew that, but no one wanted to do anything about it. We've had president after president after president after president on both sides of the aisle that knew Iran was a threat and did nothing to stop them from getting the nuke. Oh, they negotiated, they tried this, they tried that, but nobody said, Iran, no nukes, and we're going to make sure you don't have any nukes. Donald Trump did. The world's a better place without Iran having the bomb. The rest of the world knew it, but no one wanted to step up and do something. He did. So he was giving a message to the rest of the world. You wouldn't do anything about it, so I did. But now Iran is fighting back against all of us. Let's be very honest here. I have people sending me text messages, the price of gas, the price of gas, the price of gas. We've talked about this in the program. There are three things that go into modern warfare: bombs and bullets, morale of the people that are fighting, and then the economic war that goes on with the kinetic war, with the bombs and bullets. Can you continue to feed a war machine, or can I cause your country to have so much economic pain that you tap out and cry uncle? Right now, Donald Trump is telling the world and telling the American people that, you know what, we've got this. They can't do anything offensively. We've completely decimated them, and they can't fight back anymore in any meaningful way. We have air superiority, and we're just crushing them every day. But that doesn't mean that Iran doesn't have some levers of power that they can fight an economic warfare against the United States. But this economic warfare that they're fighting is actually warfare against the rest of the world. Cutting off the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the oil comes through there. That's not the oil we use. It's the oil that everybody in Asia uses, Europe uses, and everybody else. And it's causing the worldwide oil markets to go up. So they're fighting and succeeding in an economic war, not just against the United States, but against the world. And Donald Trump saying to the rest of the world, listen, they've launched a counterattack against you. Maybe not with bombs and bullets, but certainly to your economies. Are you just going to let them attack the rest of the world and do nothing about it? Or will you help us clear out the Strait of Hormuz? So he had a message to the rest of the world. He had a message to Tehran as well in the middle of this speech that had 4 different audiences all at the same time, like the Grateful Dead. He says, we're not stopping. We're not pulling back. We're not going to give you an inch. We're going to keep fighting. And if you don't open up that Strait of Hormuz, we're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age. And he's been all over the place. This is the one that I love when he spars with the media the most. Will we have boots on the ground? Well, I'm going to keep everything open. Caroline Levitt, will we have boots on the ground? Well, we're not going to rule anything out. The media wants to know exactly what's going to happen, what the script is, and when it's going to be over. And the American people probably want to know that as well. But so does the mullahs in Iran, and so does the IRGC. They'd like to know what our game plans are so they can fight back against us. There's an old Roman legion way of fighting a war. The night before a battle, they would sit down and they'd ask, all right, let's role play here. Let's pretend we're the other side. What's the one thing that they would love for us to do in order to win? And they go and they do reverse engineer. What would they really want to do to come get us? And they go, okay, if that's the one thing that would really help them, let's do the complete opposite. Donald Trump is so far all over the place. On CNN, it makes their heads explode. MS Now, they can't even fathom the concept because he's here, he's there, he's everywhere else. He's not telling Iran and Tehran and the IRGC what he's doing next. He's keeping them off guard, and then he's hammering them. So that was the message for him. And then the message to the American people is, I'm not going to have a forever war. We're not going to go in there and occupy another country. We're not going to have another forever war. We're not going to nation build. We've got this under control. We're fighting a war. It takes time. I'm going to try to get us out of there as quick as I can. And I understand that you guys are upset over the price of oil, but believe me, once we open up that Strait of Hormuz, oil will go back to where it belongs. Because again, it's not a supply issue. It's a supply chain issue. Again, when we had my buddy on, he said, there's upstream, midstream, downstream. Upstream, we get the oil out of the ground. Midstream, we transport it and get it over to the refinery. And then downstream, we get it to the refinery and out to the people. Iran has choked off the midstream, not for the United States. We only get 2% of our oil. They choked off the midstream of the entire world. That's why the prices are going up. That's why he's trying to explain once that Strait of Hormuz is opened up, which is warfare against the entire world, your gas prices will go back to where they were before. It was very difficult for me to figure that out when I watched it the first time. I had to watch it a couple more times. And once you look at it that way, you'll understand, because you're going to get a lot of criticism. That's the structure that he tried to pull off last night. It's not rambling, it was targeting. Democrats are going to say they heard chaos last night. American people will hear something maybe a little bit more confusing. And once I figured it out, there were 4 precise signals that were meant not just for one set of ears, but for a bunch of set of ears. It only sounds scattered because we were getting the message that was meant for different people around the world. I want to get your thoughts. Again, I thought we were going to get this big fire and brimstone speech. We got him on the run. We're going to keep him on the run. We're going to fight. But it took me a couple times to kind of figure out what his intentions were and what messages he was sending. And once you figure that out, it was a pretty good speech. 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140, the number for you to join us here on the program. Let me remind everybody, A-Plus Roofing, longtime sponsor of this radio show. Billy Kane reached out to me, and I've got to just share this with you. So if